this tutorial we're going to continue Illustrator CC 2020 Classroom in a Book Chapter 00, which is the quick tour, finishing up our nuts and squirrels. So when we left off, we had just finished playing with creating these amazingly awesome acorns. So let's go ahead and play with a few other things. Let's go to View and Fit Artboard and Window and see what we've got so far. So let's go ahead and grab that selection tool and let's go to our layers. And let's go ahead and turn our background back on so we can select it. And let's go ahead to our properties. So let's make sure we're in our background. Let's go to our properties, and in our background we want to go ahead and add a little bit of something. We want to add a gradient. So let's go to our fill color box. So let's make sure we've got background selected, our fill color box, and let's go ahead and grab that white and black gradient and go ahead and click that. Yes, it's really ugly. We're going to fix it. Let's go down here to gradient options. We're going to get a few options to play with here. And what we want to do is change this color. So it's this gradient slider right here. Let's double click on it. And it's going to say, what do you want to make it instead? Let's change it to a really light gray. So our cyan is going to be 9. Tab magenta 7. Tab yellow 9. Black is going to go ahead and be 0. And we'll go ahead and push enter to hide that, so we get kind of a you can see it's very gradual, but we're going to make it a little bit different. So let's go ahead and make it a radial and see how just the corners of your background are now darker and your middle is much lighter. So it makes it kind of a nice vignette type of look without having to do a lot of other work. Alright, so now we're going to go ahead and play with some of the other options. Let's go ahead and close up our gradient. And let's go ahead and hide what we're working on right now so we don't have it fighting with other things. So let's go hide, object hide, and we want selection. So it's going to go ahead and put that background away. It hasn't gone away, we're just putting it somewhere else for a little bit. So let's go ahead back to our layers and pick on that content layer so that we can add new content to there. So let's go ahead and place some images. So now we need to add that nuts and squirrel elements. So let's go ahead and do a file and place. You need to go to your lesson 00 folder that you downloaded and go ahead and grab that hand lettering.psd and say place. And I'm just going to go ahead and click and place it. We're going to mess with it some more, so don't worry about it. Yes, it's coming in kind of dirty and gross, but we're going to make it much nicer. So we're going to make sure with our selection tool our nuts and squirrel is selected, and we want to go ahead to our properties, and we want to go ahead and trace this because we want to convert it from an image into a vector that we can play with. So let's go ahead and go to image trace, and on image trace let's go ahead and do black and white logo. So that's not too bad, but we can make it better. Let's go ahead and click on the properties panel here and get a few more things. So we want to view that tracing result, and let's go ahead and make it so let's go to our advanced. We want to go ahead and make the paths 25. Come down to the corners and make those 0. We want our noise to be 25. We want snap curves to lines to be turned off, and we're going to go ahead and say to ignore the white. So it's going to go ahead and just kind of give us a nice clean look there. It makes it pretty nice. So I'm happy with that. Let's go ahead and close it. Now what we need to do is convert that into a path. So we're going to go ahead and tell it to go to expand, and it's going to convert those into something as a scalable object. So now we're going to go ahead and make it blue. So on the fill, come down here to our blue that we created, and I'm pretty happy with it. And I want to make it a little bit bigger. So what I can do is with my selection tool, I can just grab it, but if you don't hold shift, it doesn't constrain your proportions, so you're going to get weird funhouse things going on. So make sure you hold shift as you drag, and you'll get it to release in or expand in proportion. Let go of your mouse, then let go of your shift. Otherwise it might just go back. Alright, so the next thing we're going to do, I'm going to move nuts and squirrel down here for a minute. I'm going to go ahead and we need to add that squirrel element. So let's go to our file, or let's go to, file and place. Oh, this is having us do it a different way. Let's do file open. And let's go to the squirrel and say open. So we get this cute little squirrel. Bet you thought you were going to have to draw him. So let's go ahead, do a select. We want to do all on active artboard, so we want to grab all those paths and then just edit and copy. I'm then going to go into my preview that I've got going on here. We can go ahead and close that squirrel up. We're not going to use him anymore. And do a edit and paste. And he's going to paste right there in the middle. We want to make sure we move him up. So it's easier to move him if you grab him by one of the paths in his tail. If you just grab him by the outside, there's a really good chance that you will only grab part of him. So that's kind of a pain. Yeah, so let's go ahead and move him up. And let's do a select. Make sure we've got everything deselected so we're good. Now let's click on one of these lighter paths in his tail and use a brush to make it a little bit better. So let's go to our window and we want to go to brush libraries, which is all the way here at the bottom. And in brush libraries we want to go to artistic and we want to go to artistic ink. And it's going to say, okay, what do you want? Now, depending on how you have it set up, you might see different things. So you can go to your panel options. You can always do thumbnail view, or you can do the list view. So in thumbnail, if you hover over, you'll see you get different choices. They want marker. So let's go ahead and do marker. You can kind of see how it makes that difference. So you could choose different. You know, I don't care which one you use, just find one that you like for his funky tail. So I'm going to go ahead and go with marker. And I'm good with that, so I go ahead and close it. And let's go ahead and grab our selection tool, go around both elements, and right click and group them. That way when we move them around, we can move the whole thing at once. Otherwise, it sometimes falls apart and you don't want that. Let's do a Control S and save what we've got so far. Let's go ahead and do Object and Show All, so it gives me everything that's on there. And I want to go ahead and kind of rearrange this to where I want it. So I'm going to put my nut and squirrel here toward the top. I'm going to grab my squirrel guy and put him toward the bottom. Grab this boutique, kind of move it over here. So it's not perfect, but I'm going to make it a lot easier for the elements to be centered. So I'm going to go ahead and click my background. And I'm going to go ahead and hit my boutique at the same time. In properties, I want to go to my align options. And I want to go ahead and do horizontal center align. And I want to do vertical center align. Now notice that it did some weird things. It was going off each other. So I'm going to do an undo because it aligned to the selection. I want it to align to the artboard. So make sure you do this first one, align to artboard, then do your horizontal and your vertical. And I'm not happy with vertical there. So I'm going to go ahead and move him back down. It went vertical because it went to the middle. I forgot I had him selected still. So now, because I have those guides there, I can use those and use my nudge to kind of choose where I want to put those different elements. Then I'm going to go ahead and grab my, grabbing the wrong one, undo. I'm going to go ahead and grab my squirrel, move him kind of around, and move maybe have him holding one of the nuts. Kind of move the nuts around wherever you want them. You can use this nut and squirrel. Let's go ahead and bring him so he is horizontally centered. And I'm going to go ahead and bring him down a little bit. And you have to choose whether or not you want the letters to go over or under his tail. I got a little big. It's kind of outside here. So I'm going to go ahead and shrink him down just a little bit. Hold shift and do that. Alright, so I've got my squirrel there. Let's go ahead and put him over. Look kind of better. Overlapping. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and do a few more things before we finish this one up. Let's go ahead and deselect all and do a Control S and save. We're going to go ahead and add a secondary drop shadow that almost makes it look like you have duplicated this element. So let's go ahead and grab our selection tool, grab the nut and squirrel layer element, and let's go ahead and go to our FX box over in Properties. And we want to come down here to Stylize. And drop shadow is not one of them. Now let's try again. Nut. Okay, let's go ahead. We've got this guy. We've got our FX. This is fun. Alright, which layer am I working on? I'm working on content. I've got my hand lettering selected. I've got this. Let's do a bring to front just in case. Alright, down here. This is fun. Well, Stylize used to have drop shadow here, so I'm not really sure what happened. Let's go to, I'm going to push pause and see if I can fix it. Alright, so when we dropped off, we were looking for the drop shadow. I was just looking in the wrong spot. So let's go ahead and go to our FX. Come down here to the top Stylize, not the bottom Stylize, and do drop shadow. And from there, we're going to go ahead and choose multiply. Let's take that opacity down to 20. And our X offset is going to be 0.05. I'm going to do tab, 0.05. My color is black. Turn my preview on. And make sure my blur is set at 0, so it looks like a really exact copy, which is exactly where I want it. And let's go ahead and say OK. Now, just like you can in InDesign, you can have different presentation modes. So I'm going to go to my screen mode and go here to presentation. And I can see exactly what I've got as far as my document is done. So then what you're going to do is make sure you go ahead and package this. Let's do File and Package. We do need to save it. From there, we're going to go ahead and choose the location. So I'm going to go ahead and make sure I put it in my folder. So I've got teaching. Let's go revise tutorials, CC 2020. Oh, wrong one. And this is lesson 00. So I'm going to do first initial, last name, underscore, Absorbent Illustrator, not parenthesis, underscore, classroom book 00. And it's going to say it's not valid. Okay, so let's go ahead and state, instead of say .ai, do PKG. So you've got a packaged folder. Oh, it's telling me I'm looking for the folder. Alright, so now folder name. So instead of folder here, I want PKG right here. They've changed this around a little bit. I do not want the report when we're done. Oh, maybe let's try. And then package. Do not steal the fonts. It was successfully done, so show package. It's going to go ahead and show me where it's at. So I'm going to go pop out to my lesson 00. I'm going to do my right click, send to compressed folder. And that is going to be the one that I'm going to turn in for this assignment. Good luck, and I can't wait to see how awesome your acorns look.